When activating off of crouching medium kick, compared to activating off of 1, 2, 3, it is a whole different beast. Because 1, 2, 3 gives you the ability to do very easy block strings off of it. You can either go high or low, right? So you can start with your standing medium punch, you can start with your crouching light kick and go right into like pressure or something. But when you start from crouching medium kick, if I were to try the same thing using that crouching light kick, if I'm not perfectly timing it, it is going to hit Ken trying to throw me. So this causes some issues, because if you want to be able to get it to be blocked like this, you have a single frame. Whereas if he is not blocking and you activate, it's +5. So you have an extra 2 frames to hit your opponent with your crouching light kick or crouching light punch, which makes the hit a lot easier to get, right? You can plink it to make it more consistent on hit. So this also means that you have to react to them actually getting hit or not. And if you're not able to react to them getting hit or not, then there's going to be some even more pertinent problems. So when you're activating, getting something like this, you have a couple frames. But if you take a step back, you're not in range to even hit your opponent. So whether they're blocking or whether you hit them with your crouching medium kick, there are issues, because you cannot combo as a follow-up without having a 1-frame link. So if they block, you have a 1-frame link up close that's a low attack. And if you're far enough away, the only way that you're able to hit them is with crouching medium kick. So something like this. So again, if you're not able to do crouching medium kick Kara Fierce, you're kind of screwed, because getting a 1-frame link into a shoulder is extremely difficult. So your follow-ups suck without immaculate execution, regardless of how you hit your opponent. So this leaves you in this awkward situation where even if they block, right, and you're up close, if you're trying to get this block string, then you're using crouching light punch or crouching light kick, and both of these are low. So if your opponent guess parries low, you're kind of screwed, because they can just parry throw. And that's not a great situation to be in. So you really have to be able to mix things up here, because you're only +3. Even if you make the decision that you're going to try to hit them, that may or may not work. So assuming that you want to actually try to hit your opponent, if you're even a frame off of trying to do that, your far medium punch is going to get thrown. If you try to walk up and go for close standing medium punch, you're going to get thrown. And while yes, your opponents aren't going to be mashing throw against your activation all the time, it is something that you have to be worried about. So while it's slightly risky to go for, the block string like this, you also have other options, right? Even though far standing medium punch, if you do it late, will not hit your opponent, if you don't do it late, will hit your opponent, right? If you time it correctly. So it's one of those things that's an auto frame trap if you commit to it immediately. So you have to know what block strings you can go for that will allow you to do other things. So like, if Ken doesn't do anything here, right, and I activate, and I do medium punch, fierce punch, shoulder, I'm still +3. And I can contest with other decisions like walk up standing medium punch, crouching medium kick, etc., right? So if I hit my opponent, then I'm able to follow up. So these sort of basic premises are what newer players should go for when activating off of these situations, because it takes a lot less mental strain or mental stack and still leaves you in decent positions. So if we're aiming, right, for this sort of a block string, and we know that it's low parryable easily, going for low pressure here is really risky. Even though it's very easy to get into, because you can do crouching medium kick, crouch light kicks, chain. The problem with this is that because it is low parryable, and it is still technically a chain, if they try to parry throw, then they're going to be in a situation where you lose. The only time this isn't true is if they're going for a command throw. So if you go for the low crouching medium kick, chain, crouch, light kick, it still has the same risks as trying to go for the block string, or trying to go for the crouching light kick into Dakai, or whatever it is that you want to go for on hit, right? And it's the same thing where if you try to hit your opponent and they're getting hit by your crouching medium kick and you go for a crouching light punch or crouching light kick into something, if your inputs are off, it's an easy down parry. So you need the high decisions in order to really mix things up. So up close, the most basic option that you have is close standing medium kick, because if they try to press a button, or if they just stand there and block, you're sort of gravy, because it will whiff if they don't actually interact. And this lets you go for Zempo, or it lets you go for, whatever it is that you want to do. Go right back into pressure, either from highs or lows, and it leaves a lot of options available to you. They can technically throw the whiff though, so doing something like this can be risky, even if the risk is small. So when you're doing close standing medium punch, or medium punch in general, as a high move choice, it starts up in 3 frames. This is 2 frames, so we know if we time this incorrectly, it's a frame trap. But if we time this incorrectly, we get thrown. This means we have like a 2-frame window to actually hit Ken, or hit your opponent that's trying to throw you at this distance. So it makes it difficult to follow up. So if you are a newer player, you can commit to something like this, or if you are a more experienced player that knows, where on the stage you are and how to manipulate being able to get Kara dash punch and stuff to work, you can do something like this. But in general, you can end up using this as a string to go into Daipon move, right? And that's fine too. But because it's only a 1-frame decision that you can make, it is risky. But it does trade with super. Now, why this is good is that if your opponent doesn't know that they can continually punish you for it, then, well, great. But I'm blocking here, and Ken can super and then punish with super afterward. He can technically DP as well. So if you trade, you lose, as long as the opponent knows that their character has something that can follow up. So while close standing medium punch or far medium punch trades with Ken, you can still end up getting situations which let you go for high combos and let you go for low combos off of that first hit, right? And having that high-low off of this is very important. But also, you have forward medium kick. Because if you do forward medium kick at a slight delay, it will hit throw. It'll lose to DP and super, obviously, but it being -3 on hit is not great. It's a risk to put yourself in this situation. I'm not really going to go over this situation in depth, but Ken can contest you. He can do crouching medium punch into super, and if you press crouch jab, it's not going to work. Or a crouching light kick or whatever. Even your fastest buttons will not hit them. You will get hit out of the startup. So you'll have to play rock, paper, scissors with your opponent with option parries and all this stuff based on how you're conditioning your opponent. But that's a whole other subject. Realistically, though, there are other high options. You can go for Fierce Punch. And it will either hit as far or it will hit as close, depending on where you are when you activate your thing, right? And this is a lot more startup than other moves do, by comparison. It is a startup of 6. So it's easy to go right into Daipon loop, or like a Daipon loop sort of block string off of this. So while I've been talking about throw, the important thing to note here is that I'm not even in throw range, and if Ken were to throw here, he's not going to be in range either. Certain characters will be. So from point blank, if you block, and your opponent tries to DP or super or whatever, it's a very large risk because they just lose so much for it, right? And this is why most of the time when you get this close activation, they're either going to guess for those parries, the high parry or the low parry, and more commonly the low parry, or they're going to just block. And when they're just blocking, you know, doing Zempo is very potent. And it's also, you know, an option to just like go for a single tick into Zempo or going into your normal pressure string. Because while you can get thrown out of walk up, stand medium, punch, crouch, leg kick, the chances of that happening are very low depending on how your opponent chooses to approach that risk reward, right? So even though they can contest you, realistically they're not going to. It's too much of a risk, and it might be something that's worth doing based on, you know, tendency interactions between you and your opponent, but like baseline just churning super or churning DP or whatever just doesn't make sense. So this is also why you can take advantage of them just blocking and just going for something like Zempo, or going for that walk up standing medium punch crouch leg kick. Even though you can be back thrown or you can be thrown in general, like in the most common scenarios, the opponent's going to block because if they guess wrong for the parry, they take a lot of damage. If they let you Zempo them, they take less damage. And if they let you Zempo them early, definitely get a lot less meter than if you Zempo them late. So they'll usually let you start your pressure, in which case you can go for those timings that you would normally Zempo and look for those frame traps or whatever it is that you might do. But realistically, knowing that you can take that step against most players is important, and knowing how to adapt if they do go for the throws or the supers or the DPs or whatever is important too. Knowing that you can just block or take that step back before you make a decision, since you'll still be able to interact with them, at least at point blank range. One of the important things to note about the Zempo thing is that if you just delay it, then you can technically throw the end of their throw, right? And as you can see here, Ken's not in range to throw me because I'm pushed back too far. So I start at 45 pixels, basically like right in his face, and I end up at like 77 to 82. And if I take a step back, I'm pushed back even more. So realistically, he can't throw me unless I let him. So this is why the like delay decisions also work. Now, the distance at which you can be thrown changes between characters. So that's something you also have to keep in mind. So if you were to do it on characters with larger throw ranges, like Urian is one of the highest, you're still out of range. And you can still follow up with a decision, right? Or whiff punish, so to speak. Now, if you were to hold back, you'll be forced into a situation where you are forced to proximity guard. Same thing for if you are just blocking low against these type of characters. So you have to worry about if the character can do a Kara, though. So if you were to activate against Chun and then just try to play defensive because you're worried about crouch jab or whatever, or if you down parry or whatever, you still have to worry about SGGK from her, which is like down parry and then roundhouse throw, right? Because it covers the crouching light kick, the crouching light punch sort of block string stuff if you mess up the timing. But that's also slightly easier on Chun compared to other characters, because there's 2 more frames of block stun when she's crouching. So it's a little bit easier to get block string started against her versus other characters. And the characters that you really have to worry about this sort of a Kara throw from are Chun and Q. So like outside of that, maybe Oro and Remy, but in a realistic sense, like they have to worry about the distance that you're at when you do your activation, because if you're too far away, they can't contest with throw anyway, right? So you still get that guaranteed sort of mix-up of high-low. Since we've gone over the close range stuff, we have to talk about the mid-range stuff. So the important thing to understand here is that crouching medium kick activate is not a block string into crouching medium kick. even at distances where it does work, unless you're playing against Chun, Ryu, or Q. Other characters have the option to like jump back or backdash if you don't time things perfectly. So as an example, Ken here can backdash my crouching medium kick. But if I read this and I do shoulder, it'll hit the backdash. So there are mind games here. So if I try to do like forward medium kick, it'll hit the backdash attempt. Right? If I try to do, you know, far standing heavy punch, it'll hit the backdash attempt. However, if I am, you know, a step back, it won't. So all of your choices are very distance dependent, right? So this means that if you are activating here, the most common situations you'll see are like standing fierce punch into shoulder, or slight walk up crouching medium kick into shoulder. And it gives you +5 and allows you to get frame traps and threaten walk-ups and all that stuff like you normally would. Now, the only other thing that you can do is like jumps. So you can either, you know, walk up, stand medium punch, jump, fire stand heavy punch, jump, crouching medium kick, jump. So there's a lot of things you have to know with these jumps as well, as far as if you can force a frame trap off of your dive kick or not. So here, if Ken were to be holding back, I would be in an even better situation than +5. So if he tries to do anything, he's kind of screwed. And even if he tries to do anything, if I Zempo properly, the Zempo will throw him unless he's doing like DP or super, right? Now, in these situations where you're at this distance, there are more options if you are a little more technical. So, you know, you can do Kara Fierce as a way to get into range to keep Daipon loop. You can also do crouching medium kick into Kara Fierce like I talked about, right? And then you have crouching medium kick, Kara crouching medium kick as a way to like frame trap off of a low. So if the opponent's trying to like red parry your Kara Fierce punch, then that's a way to deal with it. But realistically, you know, you have Kara standing light kick as a way to get back in. And then you have Kara crouching light kick as another way to get back in. Right? So you do have ways to get back in, and you also have the ability to just like, you know, walk up, standing medium punch Dakai, you know, walk up, standing medium punch, fierce punch, shoulder. There's a lot of different choices that you have. But, you know, some of these things are a little bit more technical if you want a safe route to actually get in to threaten Zempo. So without going for jump mix-ups, you know, like this, where you can mix up between empty jump or jump target combo, jump attack, jump dive kick, all of these things, it can be a risk. And this is why you'll see a lot of Yuns not really try to like activate this far away off of crouching medium kick, because like it is a risk. The opponent sort of can only be hit by very far things, right? So like you can activate here, and then you can go for something like sweep as a knockdown, which will also catch like backdash. So you do have options, but they're not like without risk to them. So like crouching medium kick hits a lot faster than crouching roundhouse than standing fierce does, because fierce is 6 frames and this is 3. So if the opponent's cheeky, they can try to like down parry, forward parry, and try to cover both options. But obviously, you know, you can delay your decisions and hit attempts to parry by delaying your action, right? So there are interactions there as well. But in general, this spacing is very difficult, because if you're any further back, you know, your crouching medium kick doesn't even work. So you actually have to like walk up crouching medium kick shoulder, or you have to like very far fierce into fierce punch shoulder, which is only +3. So like doing something like fierce Kara fierce shoulder gets you in a little bit easier. But from farther away, like you really need the ability to do the Kara stuff in order to maximize it. So like activating from this far away, like max distance, is not something I would really suggest because you're locked into decisions like shoulder, like far fierce, and otherwise the only way to do it is to like walk up, crouch, medium kick, or sweep or something. Because if you want to activate from really far away and then like walk up, stand, light kick, you have a long way to walk. So your opponent can backdash or jump away just like they can if you're closer, right? So that's something you really have to worry about. If Ken's jumping away and you're not in range for your close standing medium punch, which actually has a hurt box above its hitbox, or a hitbox above its hurt box, I should say, that can hit like Ken's jump back fierce or Dudley's jump back roundhouse or whatever, like you're not going to be in a profitable position from activating this far away. So if you're activating off of crouching medium kick, you really have to understand the distances and what is available to you. And if you don't have like the technical prowess to do the more complicated things from further away, it is really a risk to activate from far away. And this is another reason why a lot of people will fish for that 1-2-3 activate, because it gives them that guaranteed block string / frame trap mix up, where the crouching medium kick only does that at point blank.